So we run within Yo China, 60% of the business is dine-in, 30% is delivery and 10% is takeaway. So 40% of the business is off-premise and 60% of it is dine-in. So I think one of the big learnings for us was around asset utilization. You know, we pay rental for 24 hours in a day. Obviously, you've got an infrastructure, and in retail you are bound by the vagaries of exams coming, Navratras coming, or just plain footfall within a certain period being low. So how do you make sure that the asset utilization pans out of the same format? And with 40% delivery, that took the pressure off the dine-in side of the business. On the other format that we run, which is Dim Sum Brothers, we decided very early on that for the consumers, there was a completely different set of experiences. Yo China should be about value Chinese, speedy, fun, trendy for the youth, and Dim Sum Brothers should be a specialist cuisine, more fine dining, also fun in fine dining, but with a very different set of values that it gives out to the guests coming in, and which is why we gave it a completely different name. We didn't want either of the two brands to be interconnected for a guest simply because of the experiences that they offered, and not in terms of better food but if you look at value as a parameter, you look at various other things that a guest looks at when he's entering either of the two restaurants should be different, and hence the two formats were kept different. Location is obviously another key issue depending on format. One of the key learnings for us, and this came more through failure than success, was a lot of times restaurateurs are location driven because of a hunt for a particular mall or a hunt for a particular high street. And one of our key learnings was that instead of chasing the real estate, it's key to understand who the consumer or who the guest of the brand is, and where does that guest stay within a certain city. And then after we figure out where he stays, is the best real estate option a mall or a high street basis where he stays, versus rampantly just going into any well-known market or real estate. Sure. So these have been the key learnings on the business, apart from obviously supply chain consistency, like you rightly mentioned. I think that's key. Process is key. But one last thing I'd like to add, you know, we've now at Yo China, we've been in the business 11 years. And one of our other big learnings was that unlike other parts of the world, the guest in India changes their aspiration, changes their outlook towards what they want every year, right? So you're not building on a stable outlook. It's not like the US where you could build a McDonald's in the 1950s with the same look and feel for the next 10 years or the same menu. In India, that's not going to happen. Whether you have a quick service brand, whether you have a fine dine brand, with 60% of the country under 30, with people traveling, with new types of real estate coming out, with new options coming out, aspiration levels are changing by the year. And if you can't keep 5 minutes ahead of the clock, it's going to be very late.
Anything else?
I'll lay out the challenge for you in consistency. Why consistency is a challenge, and then I'm still trying to figure out the solution. The challenge is threefold. First part of consistency lies with the ingredient, right? Supply as well as the consistency of the ingredient. Now, how do I make a consistent chili chicken if the raw ingredient itself is inconsistent? Or how do you make a certain stir fry which requires a bok choy, and you have a store in, say, Patna, and you don't get bok choy? So the raw ingredient is an issue. The second issue is supply chain. So there are different technologies from dehydrated to frozen, chilled, blah, blah, blah. But essentially all of them require a great transport network. They require a cost-effective system. They require consistency of temperature to be maintained. So the ideal way, for example, to serve consistent dim sum across Yo China in, say, just Delhi, will be to make fresh daily dim sum in a central kitchen and send them through a chilled chain, not a frozen chain, because the flour doesn't take to frozen, but a chilled chain across all the stores in Delhi. But then the question begets that A, is that available in a cost-effective manner? And B, most importantly, from the production facility to transporting it within the restaurant in 45 degrees heat, is that supply chain consistent? Correct. Is that temperature consistent? So the answer to this, very frankly, is pray a lot and keep working on training, keep working on sensitizing people on hygiene, on other elements of that, and just wait for the supply chain in the country to develop and piggyback off that. Because if you're entrepreneurs like us, you know, we can't go out and invest in the front end and the back end. So I guess you just have to, and it's getting better. It's getting better by the year. But the key is to really piggyback off the system and just rely very heavily on training to compensate for the loss on these other two elements. I think the two big trends that we are already witnessing, and it will only go stronger. First one is aspiration. And I'll give you an example, a story. When we started Yo China 11 years back, on the dim sum, so we brought dim sum to the masses. Previously it was in 5-star hotels, and we said it's 10 rupees a piece. The original menu was 10 rupees a piece. And we pedestrianized it and made it popular. And we had this one variety which was very popular in Southeast Asia called a pao, right? Which is essentially a fermented bun. And it had a chicken stuffing and a veg stuffing in it. And for 6-8 months, it didn't move at all. So what ran was really the chicken dim sum and the Szechuan chicken dim sum. And the bao would sell whatever number of portions only because the founders were eating it daily. And because we liked it so much, we refused to get it off the menu. After a year, we changed the name of that bao to the Grand Chili Chicken Bao. And it ran like hot fire. And obviously we changed the stuffing inside. 10 years forward, when we started Dim Sum Brothers, and we got in a chef from Singapore, we have 60 varieties of dim sum on the menu, and not a single dim sum is called chicken dim sum. Each one is thematic, it's got either the flavor or a name. So there are 60 kinds of dim sum which most people, if they haven't traveled, haven't heard of. And it's worked completely. So, and the change in these 10 years has really been that young India is going out and saying, listen, we want to learn. Either we've traveled and we know about it, in which case we appreciate what you're bringing to the table. Or if we haven't traveled, I'd love to learn. I want to learn how to eat with chopsticks. I want to know about the different kinds of dim sum. So aspiration in any format is really, really going to be the key. Because media's opened up, internet's really gone on fire. So aspiration, feeding that aspiration is critical. Second big change we're witnessing within the industry is this huge idea of scale, but at the same time freshness. And you know, when you think about it, it's contradictory, because how do you really build for scale but maintain freshness? And whether it's a McDonald's customized burger which they've developed in the US, they've launched it in India too, whether it's us, most brands are trying to figure out how do we appeal to the entire notion of freshness, be it through mocktails or cocktails or food, but bring in that element of prepared freshly for you.